Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to be honest, usually when we sit down to record these, I have a stack of notes and I'm ready to jump in with a lot of energy. But looking at the stack of sources we have on the table today, it's heavy.
It really is.
Physically heavy. Sure, we've got biographical records, court transcripts, and archives from the FBI's behavioral science unit. But it's the content that feels like it has a gravitational pull.
It does. We are staring into an abyss today. There's no other way to put it.
We really are. We're looking at a figure who is a complete paradox in the history of American crime. We're talking about Edmund Emil Kemper III.
Known to the world, of course, as the co-ed killer.
Right. And the first thing that hits you before you even get to the crimes is just the sheer physical presence of the man. I mean, looking at these photos in the file,
It's staggering.
he was 6 feet 9 inches tall
6'9".
and weighed nearly 300 pounds. He was a literal giant.
A giant who, and this is the first disconnect, by all accounts, from the local police who knew him before he was caught, was a friendly nuisance.
A friendly nuisance? What does that even mean?
It means he was the guy who hung around the cop bar, the jury room, bought officers drinks, listened to their stories. He was a police buff. They called him Big Ed. He was just there. A harmless, oversized guy who was maybe a little lonely.
So when you see someone that size, your brain automatically categorizes them. You expect a brute. You expect a thug, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't expect a man with a genius-level IQ.
And that's what I wanted to ask you about. The records say his IQ was tested multiple times, and it always came back between 136 and 145.
Correct.
That's not just smart, that's, what, top 1 or 2%?
It's well into the genius range. To put it in perspective for you, that's higher than most of the psychiatrists who were tasked with evaluating him. He was, in all likelihood, the smartest person in any room he was in.
And that creates the core tension of this entire deep dive, doesn't it?
It's the central question.
How does a man who possessed that level of intellect, who was polite, who spent 5,000 hours narrating audiobooks for the blind?
Reading children's stories. Star Wars.
Right. How does that same man possess the capacity to dismember college students and bury a human head in his mother's garden?
It's the ultimate Jekyll and Hyde scenario, but without the potion. It's all happening in one mind, all at the same time.
Okay, so here is the mission for today. We aren't just going to read a timeline of horror stories. Anyone can look up a Wikipedia page for that. We want to analyze the taxonomy of this specific type of predator. Because Kemper isn't just a killer, he's arguably the reason we understand modern criminal profiling, right?
He is the prototype. He is the Rosetta Stone for a certain type of killer, specifically for what the FBI calls the organized killer.
So people like John Douglas, Robert Ressler, the Mindhunter guys.
Their work would look very, very different today without the hours they spent talking to Edmund Kemper. So we need to look at the systemic failures that released him, the intense psychological warfare with his mother, and the chilling rationality he applied to murder.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start at the very beginning. Section 1 of our outline, the creation of a monster. And with Kemper, is it fair to say we have to look at the biology first? Because he was massive from day one.
You can't ignore the biology. You simply can't. He was born in Burbank, California in 1948. And get this, he weighed 13 pounds at birth.
Wait, 13 pounds, that sounds medically dangerous, especially in 1948.
It was huge. I mean, that's practically a toddler. And it didn't stop there. By age 4, he was a full head taller than anyone else in his peer group.
So right from the start, before any psychology comes into play, he is physically alienated. He is other. He doesn't fit in, literally.
He's the giant in the kindergarten class, and that sets a precedent. But if we want to talk about the nature versus nurture cauldron, we have to look at the home life. His parents, Edmund Jr. and Clarnell Elizabeth Kemper.
The sources describe their relationship as pretty volatile.
Volatile is putting it mildly. It was toxic. It was a war zone. And there's a quote from his father, Edmund Jr., that really sets the scene for me. He was a World War II veteran. He'd seen combat. He'd also been involved in testing nuclear weapons at the Pacific Proving Grounds. So this is a man who understands extreme stress.
Serious stuff. He's seen the worst humanity can do.
Indeed. And he said that living with Clarnell, his wife, was worse than 396 days and nights of fighting on the front and dealing with nuclear testing.
That is. Wow. He's comparing his wife to trench warfare and atomic bombs. That tells you everything you need to know about that house.
It gives you a sense of the emotional radiation in that household. So when the parents finally divorced in 1961, Kemper went with his mother to Montana. And that is where the pathology really begins to curdle.
Clarnell Strandberg, she remarried and changed her name. She sounds like an absolute nightmare of a guardian. I was reading about her discipline style, and it wasn't just strict. It seemed designed to dismantle him.
It was systematic emasculation, demoralization. She was an alcoholic, she was neurotic, and she was incredibly domineering.
And she locked him in the basement at night?
She locked him in the basement. Now, her justification, the reason she gave, was that she was afraid he would hurt his sisters.
Which, to be fair, knowing what we know now, maybe that was an intuitive fear, a mother's intuition that something was wrong.
It might have been. It's possible. But think about it from the child's perspective. You're a young boy. You're sleeping in a locked basement in the dark, separated from the family. That is imprisonment. It's not protection. It sends the message. You are a monster to be contained.
And the abuse wasn't just physical separation, it was psychological, wasn't it? Specifically about his size and his sexuality.
Oh, absolutely. She refused to show him affection, wouldn't hug him, wouldn't kiss him goodnight, because she was terrified she would turn him gay. That was her stated fear.
But at the same time, she was mocking him for not getting girls. Right, I saw notes where she called him big, ugly, and awkward. She told him no girl would ever want him.
Exactly. It's a classic double bind.
Yeah.
It's psychological torture. She's telling him no woman will ever love him while simultaneously criticizing him for not bringing girls home. It's a damn if you do, damn if you don't scenario. It breeds deep, festering resentment.
So he just grows up with this idea that he is unlovable and that women, represented by his mother, are the source of that pain.
He viewed her as a sick, angry woman. But what fascinates me and what profilers point to is that he didn't just sit there and take it. He began to rehearse. He began to act out his retaliation in symbolic ways.
This is where we start seeing those red flags, right? The dark triad or the McDonald triad.
A McDonald triad, the classic trifecta of warning signs in children, bedwetting, fire starting, and cruelty to animals. With Kemper, the animal cruelty is the neon sign. It's flashing.
It's always the animals first, isn't it?
Almost always. It's about power. It's a safe way to exert the ultimate control over a living thing when you feel you have no control in your own life.
And his cruelty was specific, ritualistic.
Very. At age 10, he took the family cat and buried it alive.
Okay.
But he didn't stop there. That wasn't enough. He went back later, dug it up, and decapitated it. And then he put the head on a spike in the yard.
On a spike, like a trophy, like a warning.
Like a totem, a declaration. This is a 10-year-old boy. Then at 13, he killed another cat with a knife. And his reasoning for that one is incredibly telling.
What was it?
He felt the cat preferred his sister over him.
That's profound jealousy. To project that level of intent and betrayal onto a house cat.
It shows a deep pathological possessiveness and a complete inability to handle rejection, even from a pet. If something doesn't love him best, it must be destroyed.
And the rehearsals, they weren't just with animals. He involved his sisters in these dark games.
Yes. Decapitating their dolls, for one. Again, the focus on the head, on decapitation, it's there from the very beginning. But the games were even more disturbing. He would play gas chamber and electric chair.
How does a game like that even work? What were the rules?
He would have his sister tie him to a chair, and she would pretend to be the executioner. She'd flip an imaginary switch, and he would writhe on the floor, pretending to die, convulsing.
That is bone-chilling. Most kids play tag or hide-and-seek. He's role-playing his own execution.
He is playing the victim, but he's controlling the scenario.
Yeah.
He is fascinated by the mechanism of death. He's learning how it looks, how it feels, desensitizing himself to the idea. These weren't just games. They were dress rehearsals for what was coming.
And that dress rehearsal, the actual first act of violence against humans, happens incredibly early. He's only 15 years old.
15.
This is what we have in section 2 of the outline. He's 14. He can't take living with his mother anymore. He runs away to find his father in California.
And gets rejected. His father has remarried, has a new family, and basically says, I can't handle you. You're your mother's problem.
Which must have been another massive blow. The one parent he thought might be a refuge turns him away.
Crushing. So he's sent to live with his paternal grandparents in North Fork, California, a seemingly quiet rural place.
And this is a critical error in placement, isn't it? He runs from a domineering maternal figure, his mother, and is placed with
his grandmother, Maud Kemper, who, in Kemper's mind, was a carbon copy of his mother.
Basically the same person, from what I gather, the same kind of personality.
He certainly perceived her that way. He saw her as exactly the same type of emasculating figure. He hated her. He felt she was constantly nagging him, constantly belittling him, just like Clarnell. The pattern was repeating.
So on August 27, 1964, the tension snaps.
Yeah.
He's 15. He has an argument with his grandmother in the kitchen. Walk us through what happens.
He's sitting there fuming. The rage that has been building for years against his mother is now directed at this surrogate. He has a .22 rifle his grandfather had given him.
Oh,
He
wow.
goes and gets it. He shoots her, once in the head, then twice in the back as she fell.
Okay, but it didn't end there. The reports say he also used a knife.
He did. After shooting her, he grabs a kitchen knife and stabs her repeatedly in the back.
That sounds like overkill. That's a term profilers use, right?
It is exactly that. Overkill usually indicates a rage-motivated crime, a personal crime, where the violence is far in excess of what's needed to cause death. He wasn't just killing her, he was obliterating the source of his annoyance, of his humiliation.
But what happens next is what truly reveals the twist in Kemper's logic.
It's the moment the cold, rational killer emerges from the hot-blooded, angry teenager.
His grandfather wasn't home when this happened.
Right. His grandfather, Edmund Sr., was out grocery shopping. So Kemper drags his grandmother's body into a room, cleans up the blood, and he sits there. And he waits.
He waits. He doesn't run.
He waits. And when his grandfather's car pulls into the driveway, Kemper goes out to meet him with a rifle. He shoots him, too, as he's getting out of the car.
Why? I mean, if the rage was at the grandmother, why kill the grandfather? He seemed to have a decent relationship with him.
His reasoning is one of the most disturbing things in the files. He said he did it so his grandfather wouldn't have to find out his wife was dead.
He framed it as an act of mercy.
A twisted, detached, psychopathic form of mercy. He loved her, so I had to kill him so he wouldn't be sad. The logic is completely self-serving, but in his mind, perfectly sound.
So you have this hot rage with the grandmother and then this cold, calculated mercy killing of the grandfather.
Exactly. But then, when the police asked him about the grandmother, why he did it, he gave that famous, chilling quote, "I just wanted to see what it felt like to kill Grandma."
So you have mercy on one hand and cold curiosity on the other. It's like he's trying on different justifications.
He confesses immediately, though. He calls his mother first, tells her what he did.
What was her reaction?
According to him, she just said, "Oh, for heaven's sake," as if he'd spilled milk. Then he called the police and calmly waited for them to arrive.
He's 15 years old and he's committed a double homicide. So he gets sent to Atascadero State Hospital, a maximum security psychiatric facility.
Right. And initially, the doctors diagnose him with paranoid schizophrenia. They look at the crime and think, okay, a kid kills his grandparents, stabs the body.
Yeah.
He must be detached from reality. He must be psychotic.
But that diagnosis didn't stick, did it?
No. And this is where the systemic failure begins. Atascadero didn't cure him. Atascadero became his university. It's where he learned to perfect his mask.
How so?
The staff eventually observed that he had no delusions, he wasn't hearing voices, he was in fact hyper-intelligent and incredibly introspective. He could talk about his feelings and his childhood with amazing clarity. So they changed the diagnosis. They re-diagnosed him with a personality trait disturbance, passive-aggressive type.
Passive-aggressive type sounds like a bad roommate, not a double murderer. It sounds so much less dangerous.
Sounds manageable, sounds curable. And Kemper, being a genius, realized exactly how the system worked. He figured out the game. He became the model prisoner.
What did that entail? What did he do?
He was so trusted, so articulate, that the doctors actually trained him to administer psychiatric tests to other prisoners. The thematic apperception test, the Rorschach ink blots.
Wait, I need to wrap my head around this. The inmates are running the asylum. Literally, he is giving the tests that are designed to catch people like him to other potential psychopaths?
It sounds unbelievable, but yes. He's sitting across from other inmates, showing them ink blots and taking notes on their answers for the doctors.
So he's learning the system from the inside out.
He later admitted it. He said he learned the specific responses the doctors wanted to hear. He analyzed the test questions. He learned what answers triggered a red flag and what answers signaled rehabilitation. So when it was his turn to be evaluated, he simply gave them the answers they taught him to look for. He aced the test.
He hacked the test. He gamed the entire institution.
He absolutely did. He played the part of the cured, remorseful young man so perfectly that he convinced them. And it worked. He was released on his 21st birthday in December of 1969.
And the doctors? Did they have reservations?
They did. The file is clear on this. The psychiatrists advised against sending him back to live with his mother. They knew that was the source of the initial pathology. They warned that it was a volatile situation.
But the legal system overruled them.
Well, he was an adult. He'd served his time in the juvenile system. His juvenile records were eventually sealed, then expunged. Legally, it was like it never happened. And he had nowhere else to go. So the court approved his release into his mother's care.
So he goes right back to the lion's den, back to Clarnell.
It is the classic Greek tragedy. He returns to the very source of his trauma. But the dynamic has changed. When he left, he was a 15-year-old boy. He returns as a 21-year-old man who is 6'9", nearly 300 pounds, and he has killed before. He knows he can do it.
So we move into the 1970s. Section 3, the co-ed murders. He's living in Aptos near Santa Cruz with Clarnell. Is the relationship just as bad as ever?
Vicious verbal battles is how he described it. Constant fighting. She belittled him. He resented her. Nothing had changed, except now he was bigger and the rage was simmering.
But now he has resources he didn't have before.
Exactly. He got a job at the Division of Highways. This is a crucial detail. It meant he knew the roads around Santa Cruz County like the back of his hand. He knew the scenic turnouts, the isolated wooded areas, the blind spots. He knew where the police patrolled and where they didn't.
He had a map of the hunting ground in his head.
Precisely. And he had money, too. The notes say he got a $15,000 settlement from a motorcycle accident. In the early 1970s, that's a huge amount of cash.
That's life-changing money back then.
It gave him independence and mobility. He buys a car, a big Ford Galaxy. He buys guns. He buys cameras and recording equipment. And he starts experiencing what he called the zapples.
The zapples, that's such a strange, almost cartoonish word for something so dark. What did he mean by that?
It was his term for the visceral homicidal urges, the pressure building up inside him that he needed to release. But notice the discipline here, the control. He didn't just explode and start killing immediately. He practiced.
This is the part of the file that I found unbelievable. He picked up approximately 150 hitchhikers.
150. And let him go.
150 women who sat in a car with a serial killer and had no idea how close they came to dying. What was he doing?
He was desensitizing himself. He was testing his ability to control the situation. He was refining his persona, his camouflage. He realized that if he wore glasses, dressed reasonably well, and kept his car clean, these young women, mostly college students, didn't see a monster. They saw a big, safe teddy bear.
He was A/B testing his approach.
He was. And every time he let one go, he was proving to himself that he was the one in control. He held their life in his hands and chose to grant it back. He was a power trip. He was getting off on the control itself before the violence even started.
And then the switch flips. May 1972, the practice runs are over.
Marianne Page and Anita Lucchesa, two students from Fresno State hitchhiking near the Berkeley campus. This is the beginning of his organized methodology.
He picks them up. What's his story? What does he tell them?
He's friendly. He's charming. He tells them he's going their way. He drives them to a remote, wooded area that he knows from his highway job.
And this is where the organized label really applies, right? He didn't just attack them in a frenzy in the car.
No. Total control. He had a kill kit in the trunk, weapons, restraints. He had a plan. He separated them. He controlled the scene from start to finish. But it's what happens after that defines Kemper. He brings the bodies back to his apartment.
To his apartment, where he lived with his mother.
At this point, I believe he had a roommate in a separate apartment, but he would later take victims back to his mother's place when she was out. Still, the risk is astronomical.
It seems incredibly risky for someone so organized.
It is. But it's the arrogance and the risk-taking behavior of a psychopath who feels superior to everyone else. The roommate was out, but could have returned at any moment. Kemper didn't care.
And what does he do there?
He dismembers them in the bathtub. He engages in necrophilia. And then he disposes of the remains in different locations. But he keeps the heads for a time.
Why keep the heads? What is the psychological significance of that?
For an organized offender, the act of murder is just the beginning. The possession is the goal. Keeping a part of the victim, especially the head, the seat of their identity, allows him to relive the fantasy, to own the victim completely even after they are gone. It's the ultimate trophy.
The details of these crimes are horrific, and we won't go through every single one in graphic detail, but I want to talk about Aiko Ku. She was a 15-year-old dance student. There is a specific detail about the car door that haunts me.
It is a moment of pure, tragic irony. He had her in the car, and he stepped out for a second and accidentally locked himself out while she was still inside.
So in that moment, she was safe.
Completely. She could have locked the door. She could have laid on the horn. She could have tried to start the car. Anything.
But she didn't know who he was. She didn't see a threat.
No. She saw the friendly giant looking flustered, so she reached over and unlocked the door to let him back in. She let her killer back into the car.
That's just, it speaks to how disarming he was.
He later told a story about driving around with her body in the trunk. He parked outside the jury room, the cop bar, went inside for a drink, and said he was admiring his catch in the trunk. He was taunting them without them even knowing.
And then Cindy Shall. This one has a detail that I think is the most revealing about his relationship with his mother.
It's the key that unlocks his entire motivation. He killed Cindy Shall, a Cabrillo college student. He dismembered her, and he buried her head in his mother's garden.
But not just anywhere in the garden, he buried it.
Facing the mother's bedroom window, and he angled it slightly upwards.
Why? That seems so specific, so symbolic.
He told the investigators his exact reasoning. He said it was because Clarnell always wanted people to look up to her.
Oh, God.
Even in his most depraved acts, everything circled back to Clarnell. He was using these victims as stand-ins. He was conducting a psychological war against his mother, and these young women were the casualties.
Can you explain that concept of the surrogate victim a bit more?
A surrogate is a substitute. Kemper felt rejected and emasculated by his mother, who he viewed as this upper-class, educated, powerful woman, an authority figure. He couldn't kill her, not yet. The psychological barrier, the societal taboo, it was too high.
So he hunted women who were like her.
Women who reminded him of what she valued. Young, intelligent, beautiful college students. By destroying them, he was symbolically destroying pieces of her. He was, as he put it, perfecting his skills for the final target.
He even used her as a tool in his murders. He used a university parking sticker from his mother's job at UCSC to get access to the campus for his later victims, Rosalind Thorpe and Alice Liu.
Exactly. The symbolism is just layered. He was using his mother's status to hunt the surrogates of his mother. It's a closed loop of psychological warfare. He's driving onto campus, waving at the guard who recognizes the sticker, using Clarnell's credibility to find the victims that will satisfy his rage against Clarnell.
Which leads us to the inevitable conclusion. The whole spree was just a prelude. Section 4, the endgame, matricide.
The climax of his life's work, April 20, 1973.
He picks the date carefully.
It was Good Friday weekend. The campus was quiet. His mother's workplace was closed. He knew he would have time. The house would be quiet.
Walk me through that night.
Clarnell comes home from a party, a bit drunk. She and Kemper have another argument. It's vicious, like always. She goes to bed angry.
And he waits.
He waits for her to fall asleep, and then he goes into her room, and he unleashes 15, 20 years of repressed rage. He used a claw hammer first, then a penknife to slit her throat.
And then the desecration.
The desecration is where you see the pure symbolic hatred. He decapitates her. He takes the head into the living room and performs rituals. He screamed at it for an hour, venting all his frustrations. He used it as a dartboard.
And the garbage disposal incident, I read that and had to put the notes down for a second.
It is deeply, deeply symbolic. He took her larynx, her voice box, and tried to force it down the garbage disposal.
He wanted to silence her. Permanently.
Literally and figuratively. He wanted to destroy the very organ that had belittled him and screamed at him his entire life. But the disposal wouldn't grind it up, it jammed. And Kemper, with his chilling logic, noted that it was appropriate because she had bitched and screamed at him for so long that even a machine couldn't handle her.
After all that rage, he becomes cold and calculating again. He murders her friend, Sally Hallett, that same night, but that seemed almost distinct from the matricide.
It was purely functional. It was a business transaction. He knew people would wonder where Clarnell was. So he called Sally Hallett, who was an older friend of hers, invited her over for dinner to establish a cover story that he and his mother were going on a surprise trip.
And when she arrived,
he strangled her as soon as she walked in the door. It was cold, calculated, and done purely to buy himself time. There was no passion there, just utility.
And then he flees. He gets in his car and drives all the way to Pueblo, Colorado. He's got guns. He's got ammo. He thinks there's going to be a massive nationwide manhunt. He's listening to the radio constantly, waiting to hear the co-ed killer identified as Ed Kemper.
And he hears nothing. Crickets. Days go by. Nobody knows. He's just another guy in a motel room.
And what does that do to him?
The realization hits him. The pressure valve has been released. With his mother dead, the urge to kill those Zappels, it just vanished. The mission was complete. The driving force of his entire life was gone.
So he calls the police from a payphone in Pueblo, and this is the part that feels like a dark comedy sketch. They don't believe him.
It goes back to that friendly giant paradox. He calls the Santa Cruz Police Department, and the dispatcher who picks up knows him as Big Ed from the jury room bar.
The cop buff.
Right. So when he says, I killed my mother and her friend, and I'm the co-ed killer you're looking for, they literally laughed at him. They thought he was drunk or pulling a prank.
So what did he do?
He had to keep calling. He had to convince them. He had to provide specific details about the crime scenes, about the victims, details that only the killer would know, just to get them to take him seriously. He practically had to talk them into arresting him.
When they asked him why he surrendered, he said the purpose was gone. His exact words were, it was just a pure waste of time after that.
That level of detachment is chilling. It separates him from the compulsion-driven killers who can't stop. Most serial killers hunt until they are caught or they die. Kemper stopped because the source of his pathology, Clarnell, was gone. He had won his war.
Now this is where the story shifts. It goes from a crime drama to a scientific breakthrough. Section 5, the Mindhunter connection.
This is his second and perhaps more lasting legacy.
Kemper is in custody. He's intelligent, he's articulate, and he loves to talk. He's proud of what he did. Enter John Douglas and Robert Ressler of the FBI's new Behavioral Science Unit.
We have to set the stage here. In the early 70s, the BSU was in its infancy. They were trying to build a new science to understand the why and how of serial murder from the murderers themselves.
And they were interviewing anyone they could get access to.
Right. They interviewed Charles Manson, Richard Speck, but most were difficult. They were crazy or they were liars. Manson would speak in riddles. Speck was withdrawn and surly. They weren't getting good data.
But Kemper
was a gold mine. He wasn't just a subject. He was a collaborator. He was the professor of murder.
He basically defined the organized killer typology for them, didn't he?
He laid it out on a platter. He explained how he hunted, how he chose victims, how he listened to police scanners. He explained how he controlled the scene, brought a kill kit, cleaned up after himself. He was socially competent. He explained how he could talk his way out of a traffic stop with a body in the trunk because he knew how to act like a polite, deferential citizen.
So he gave them the blueprint for catching people like him in the future.
He gave them the psychological architecture. He described his crimes with what Douglas called clinical precision. He helped them understand that for killers like him, these crimes aren't always about sex in the traditional sense. They are about power, control, and manipulation. He explained the fantasy life that precedes the crime, how it builds and builds until it has to be acted out.
And there is that famous story, the head snap incident. I think this really captures the danger of dealing with someone like Kemper, no matter how polite he seems.
This is legendary in the BSU. Agent Robert Ressler was interviewing Kemper, and for some reason, he was alone with him in a small interview room. The guard had stepped out.
Just the two of them. Kemper's not in restraints.
Not in that room, no. And Kemper, who is 6'9", looks at the much smaller Ressler, looked at the door, and says, very calmly, the guard isn't coming back for about 30 minutes.
My blood just ran cold.
Because, if I went crazy in here, you'd be in a lot of trouble, wouldn't you? I could snap your head off and leave it on the table for them to find.
And he follows it up with something like, I'd own the prison then, right?
They'd have to kill me, but I'd own this place. It was a pure power play. A reminder that no matter how articulate he was, the monster was right there, just under the surface.
Can you imagine? Ressler must have been terrified.
Ressler tried to play it cool. He tried to de-escalate, but he knew it was true. Kemper later claimed he was just joking to make a point about lax security, but that incident changed FBI protocol forever. After that, agents were never, ever allowed to interview subjects like this alone. It established the buddy system for all future interviews. He literally rewrote the rules for the FBI.
Let's move to Section 6, Life Behind Bars and His Strange Pop Culture Legacy. He goes to trial in November 1973.
And in another display of his weird, twisted logic, he actually requested death by torture.
He wanted the jury to sentence him to be tortured to death.
He did. He told them he felt he deserved it. He was probably the only person in the room who wanted the death penalty. But it was suspended in California at the time. So he got 7 concurrent life sentences. He was sent to the California Medical Facility in Vacaville.
And he wasn't alone there. He was in a unit with some other infamous names. Charles Manson, Herbert Mullen.
Right, and Mullen was another serial killer operating in Santa Cruz at the exact same time as Kemper, which is just an insane coincidence.
But Mullen was the polar opposite of Kemper, wasn't he?
If Kemper was the prototype for the organized killer, Mullen was the textbook disorganized killer. He was a paranoid schizophrenic. He heard voices telling him to kill people to prevent earthquakes in California. His crimes were random, frenzied, and left a mess.
And in prison, Mullen had a hobby of singing loudly and bothering people, and Kemper, the giant, decided to train him.
He couldn't stand the chaos. So he used behavior modification on Mullen, like training a dog. When Mullen was quiet and behaved, Kemper would reward him with peanuts. Peanuts. And when he sang or acted out, Kemper would throw a cup of water on him. And apparently it worked. Mullen quieted down.
It's dark, but it's fascinating. He's applying Pavlovian conditioning to another serial killer to maintain order.
It just shows Kemper's absolute need for dominance. He viewed Mullen as inferior, as a pest. Even in prison, Kemper needed to be the one in control of his environment.
But the thing Kemper is most famous for in prison, other than the murders, is his voice.
The Volunteers of Vacaville, the audiobook program for the blind. Kemper spent over 5,000 hours in the recording booth. He had his deep, calm, articulate voice. He narrated hundreds of books,
Including Flowers in the Attic, The Glass Key, and unbelievably, Star Wars.
Can you imagine listening to the story of Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, and the voice telling you that story belongs to a man who decapitated his own mother?
It is deeply, profoundly ironic. This voice, which was the last thing his victims heard, likely reassuring them, tricking them, became a comfort to thousands of blind people who had no idea who was reading to them.
It speaks to his compartmentalization. He could shut off the monster side and just be the articulate, helpful narrator. He took great pride in it. He even ran the program for a while. It's another role he could play perfectly, the helpful giant.
So where is he now? We are recording this deep dive in early 2026. What's his current status?
Kemper is still at the California Medical Facility, but he is a shadow of his former self. In 2015, he suffered a major stroke that left him partially disabled. He's in a wheelchair now. He's in his late 70s.
And there was a parole hearing recently, right, in 2024?
Yes, in July 2024. Kemper is eligible for parole periodically, but he didn't even attend the hearing. He's frail, dealing with heart disease, diabetes. He was denied parole, obviously. But interestingly, despite his frailty, the board still considered him a high risk for future violence.
Why? I mean, if he's in a wheelchair and can barely move, what's the risk?
Because of an incident in 2022. It proves the pathology is still there. Even in a wheelchair, even with his health failing. He was caught inappropriately touching a female staff member during a diaper change.
He just can't turn it off. The impulse is still there.
It proves that the urge to violate boundaries, to manipulate, to take what isn't his, that part of his personality doesn't age out. It doesn't get sick or frail. The predator is still inside the dying body.
His cultural impact is massive. You can't really talk about serial killers in fiction without seeing his shadow. He inspired Buffalo Bill and Silence of the Lambs, elements of Patrick Bateman in American Psycho.
And of course, the portrayal by Cameron Britton in the show Mindhunter was just uncanny. It brought him to a whole new generation.
He is the archetype of the intellectual monster.
He scares us because he breaks the mold. We want monsters to look like monsters. We don't want them to be polite, well-read men who can fix your car and narrate your favorite book. Kemper forces you to look at the fact that evil can be incredibly rational and articulate.
So what does this all mean? We've looked at the biology, the abusive mother, the systemic failures, the murders, and the legacy. What's the takeaway here?
It is a terrifying case study in the perfect storm. You had the biological predisposition, the size, the intelligence, the possible brain wiring. You had the extreme environmental abuse from the one person who should have protected him. And you had the intellectual capacity to mask it all. If any one of those factors had been different, maybe he would have just been an unhappy guy who hated his mom. But together, they created a monster.
It raises a provocative final thought for me. Kemper always said he turned himself in because the purpose was gone. He killed his mother, the source of his rage, and the urge vanished.
Which is what he claims, yes. The mission was complete.
So if he hadn't killed his mother, if she had died of natural causes, or if he had just moved away and never seen her again, would he have ever stopped? Or would he have kept hunting surrogates forever, trying to satisfy an urge that could never be satisfied?
That is the million-dollar question. And, perhaps more disturbingly, Kemper turned himself in. We didn't catch him. He was a friendly giant hiding in plain sight.
It makes you wonder, how many others are out there right now, sitting at a bar, chatting with the locals, completely invisible because they just haven't finished their personal mission yet?
That is a thought that is going to keep me up tonight. Thank you for listening to this deep dive into Edmund Kemper. It's a dark one, but understanding the mind of the hunter is the only way we can hope to spot the next one.
Stay curious and stay safe.
We'll see you on the next Deep Dive.